Hey guys, Brian and John here with Roo-hide Saddlery. Today I'm going to introduce our two barrel saddles, the Custom Roo and our Wrangler barrel saddle. I'm going to be talking about cosmetics, talking about functionality, and then talking about the difference between our saddles and maybe what you're used to in the industry. Okay guys, so like I said, I'd like to start off by talking about cosmetics with the Custom Roo. So as you can see here, this is a fully stamped custom barrel saddle. We've got the stamp that goes all the way across your swell, your skirts, your jockey, your cantle. It's got a recessed border with a buck stitch in it. We have some upgraded silver conchos on the saddle. You can customize our custom saddles pretty much as far as you'd like within our options. We want to help you guys through the design process. I know there's a picture you may have in your head of the saddle of your dreams. We want to help make sure that that saddle stays looking balanced, and we've built enough of these to figure out what ends up looking goofy and what ends up looking really good. So we offer options as far as floral carving. Obviously, the more carving and time-consuming things that you add to the saddle, the more expensive the saddle will get. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is functionality. So I know cosmetics are very important to you, having the saddle looking exactly how you'd like it. The functionality is extremely important to us in making sure that everything that's on the saddle serves a purpose. From the seat to the jockeys to the fender, everything serves a purpose in the performance. So something we commonly get asked about is exotic seats, or putting a padded seat or a bicycle. That's something I want to touch base on really quick. Most of our barrel saddles do not come with padded seats. You can see as we're looking at this from side profile the depth of this saddle. I don't want to take away any of that depth or add something like an exotic hide that is going to add some slickness to that seat and add another buffer layer between you and the horse. I'm going to pass the reins over to Dad real quick so he can talk a little bit more about functionality, why we do certain things, why our saddles look different with the double skirts, some people call it, or the jockey over the skirts, and why we have such an exaggerated cutout in that. There serves a purpose behind each thing. So Dad, you can go ahead and start talking a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Brian. Let's start at the back of the saddle here. We'll start with our skirts. In our skirts, we're molding that tree into the skirts. So we're actually wet the skirts, and we've pushed that tree and molded it into the skirts, so it's already taken the shape of the tree. So it's already partway broke in when you get the saddle. You can see that this has got a round skirt. You also have an option of a square skirt, which is only that much more leather. But in a square skirt, though, you run the risk of that skirt folding up a little bit easier. And then you can have your angle skirt, where it's just cut off on an angle like that. On all our saddles, you'll see a rear jockey like this, because we're covering up that molded skirt. And then we're never going to see a crease along here. On a single skirt, sometimes you'll see that crease around the edge of the tree there. Let's talk about our cantles. At first look, it might look like we have a shallow cantle. A lot of barrel racers come up and ask if we build a saddle with a 5-inch cantle. Well, actually, in our saddles, even though it might only measure 3 back here, our actual depth right here is a little over 5 inches. So we're actually sitting down in the saddle. So that's what we talk about in our saddles, where we have you sit in the saddle, not on it. Now let's talk about the fender. In our barrel line of saddles, you'll see that we have nylon here. What we're trying to do is create consistency in fit underneath the bar here, where that stirrup leather comes over the bar underneath. And that way we're maintaining that even contact down through the back in order to release that shoulder area. So we've only got a consistent gap there underneath here for that stirrup leather to sit in, so we don't have a lump under there with a thick stirrup leather, or where it's stretched out and we don't have enough contact. We're going to have consistency with that nylon. That's the reason for the nylon there. As you come forward here, you'll see we have this fender slide here, covering the rigging, so that your fender doesn't catch here. We don't add another layer of leather on top. Some saddles do that. We're trying to have less bulk underneath your legs and free swing and balance swing. You'll see on our saddles where that fender is, your line from your shoulder down through your hip to your heel is balanced. You're going to feel balanced where you're sitting into the saddle. What we're actually doing in our saddles is rolling your pelvis back a little bit where you're actually sitting down in that saddle. As you move further forward, you've got your swell. We have a consistent height on our gullet of 8 inches. It seems to be a really magic number that really works well.
So a common trend we've seen in the barrel industry is a rider riding in a very, very closed seat with an extremely long fender. I think that's become that for security reasons. What happens when you get too close, small of a pocket, we actually lose the pocket, and what ends up happening, that rider's pelvis ends up being tilted up and tilted forward. So when you go to try to find your seat and actually roll your pelvis down into it, the whole foundation is already holding you up. Your pelvis has nowhere to go, so you're physically having to engage muscles to try to get down into that position. Also, because they're in such a close and tight seat, there's nowhere for the leg and femur bone and that to go, so the fender ends up being lengthened, where the leg is almost straight. What happens when that leg straightens, the rider starts to ride rigid. Those legs, we start bracing, and that leg ends up way out in front of you. When that leg ends up out in front of you, it pushes you to the back of the cattle, actually up against the cattle, in more of a bracing position rather than a sitting position. So something we've been working on with almost everyone who started riding in our saddles now. Most of them have come up a couple holes from where they traditionally rode. Because they have somewhere to sit in now and not on, they're able to actually use their seat, which has made incredible differences for them and for the horse. So by bringing that fender up a little bit, it allows you to use your legs on your horse when you need them. If my legs are braced and out in front of me like this, there's no way I can get that horse to drive right off of that. I don't have that rib cage control that I'm going to need if I'm out here skiing. So the softer we ride, the clearer that communication is with the horse. So if we can get you riding soft and balanced, I want to avoid this. And I see so much of that in the barrel arena where I'm seeing daylight between the horse and the rider. And a lot of that comes from the angle of the pelvis. When they're held straight up and down, shoulders end up in front of the pelvis, and there's nowhere to move with that horse in that tiny seat. So what we start to see is pop, 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 versus our hips being able to use as a shock absorber.
Brian was just talking about rider position, and what we're trying to do and achieve is to get that rider riding soft. And a lot of times what's happening, why that rider ends up up at the front of the saddle here, out of position with that pelvis tipped forward, is also the foundation, is the tree, is the shape of the tree. It's so critical that we get the right shaped tree for that horse.
So another thing to think about when you guys are looking at saddles, as far as fit for you and for the horse, when you see the back of the skirts and the seat are sitting at a flush level, that's telling you how flat that bar pattern really is. So when you look at any of our saddles, when I'm looking at the back of the skirts here and down seat, you can see we're sitting at two different levels. You're sitting down in the saddle versus on it. Now, traditionally in the Western industry, a lot of those bar patterns are very, very flat. So there's no way to create a pocket without either building that 5-inch backrest to create depth or having to build the front of the ground seat up. So there's more to it beyond that besides what it's going to do for you as a rider, actually rolling down into it. Jad, what's the importance of that? So yes, it gives the rider somewhere to sit, but what's it doing for the horse?
What we're trying to do is follow the contour of that horse's backs. How many horses' backs you see that are perfectly flat? So we're mimicking, mirror imaging that horse's contour, his shape, to get down low and close to that horse. And then we're allowing freedom for that scapula to travel under the front of the bar here. That's critical that we get maximum travel of the scapula under the front of the bar so that we can maximize that horse's stride length out here. So, and in saying that, it's really critical that that our foundation is balanced, that the tree is sitting true on the horse. A lot of times I'll see a saddle that actually creeps back and the rider ends up riding downhill.
That's one of the most common things you'll see.
Yes.
After you warm up a horse and someone's got to hop off the saddle and loosen that cinch and try to slide it back forward again, and to try to get it sitting level is for exactly what he's talking about.
Yep. And so when you get the contact down through the back, release that shoulder area, your foundation is balanced and it will stay there.
So now I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about our Wrangler barrel racer. So this is the Wrangler barrel racer. Where the Wrangler barrel racer even came from, we had so many people asking us for used saddles all the time. And they had a certain price point that they said they would be able to stay within. They didn't care about cosmetics. They were just tired of their saddle crippling up their horse or the issues they were having as a rider. And they wanted our help. So we found a way to create a product that was had the same functionality and fit as our custom Roo, but it allowed us to put it out there at a price point that was more appealing to some of these people that weren't worried about the cosmetics. They just were hungry for something that was going to make a difference for their horse. So we're going to do a quick briefing on the Wrangler. A couple of things that you'll see are different, maybe that you've never seen before. You'll see a partially exposed swell and a partially exposed cantle. The rest of it, you guys have minimal options. That's one of the other things we've been able to keep the price point down at. We kept it a very simple menu, basically. You can choose your rough out or slick out. You can do combinations of the two. You can pick your square skirt, angled skirt, or your round skirt. It comes with a basic border. You can do a border on the jockey and the swell. We have stud options, jewel options, a buck stitch option, or a single border stamp. You have the options of going with a string or with a traditional screw-in concho. The idea behind this saddle, once again, wasn't for cosmetics. It was strictly for functionality. Now,
feel and function.
Yep, it's got the same foundation to it. We can build it on the same trees, but it just allows us to get that saddle out there at a more affordable price point. Or someone who's never ridden a Roo and they're iffy about the whole deal. This has actually been kind of an introductory saddle for some of those people. And once they order one, we've had multiple people now that started with the Wrangler and within a month and a half wanted to keep this, and they ordered their custom saddle as well. So you do have your I guess, cosmetic benefits of going with the custom Roo, but this is your work truck model version of the Roo-hide barrel racer, which is our Wrangler.
Thank you guys for watching. Sit quiet, close, and comfortable with Roo-hide.